everyone, and welcome back to another episode. We're the Road to Glory podcast. I'm Juliet.
And I'm Cecilia. And today we are finally back with an F1 Academy race review. And now we are sorry that we have been a bit inconsistent. But as some of our viewers and listeners may know, it's obviously because we were volunteering at the London E-Prix a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, our lives have been a little bit all over the place, but we are back to give you some feeder series news and then do a race review on F1 Academy in Zandvoort. It's actually been forever since we've done a race review on F1 Academy because obviously they were in Silverstone, but we were there. So we didn't really get to give you a nice race review on it. So it's good to be back. And we had some incredible racing this weekend.
We really did. Obviously, ALBA having the best weekend. It had to be a great weekend for me, but we'll get to that. Now, let's start with the feeder series news you were talking about. Obviously, we have to start off with some sad news.
I feel like there needs to be sad music playing in the background as I tell you this, because as you know, we love Prema, and Prema have unfortunately parted ways with Louis Sharp for the rest of the season. Not quite sure what went on there. Kind of seems to be budget-wise. I think Louis is just cutting his season short and then looking ahead towards 2027. But we do have his replacement in the form of Alex Powell, who will be in for the final 2 race weekends and the testing, which we actually have on this week in Mad Ring. So, yeah, it is absolutely disappointing that Louis has left Prema, but we really wish him all of the best.
Yes, it is very unfortunate to see that now we've actually seen his last race with Prema, even without knowing it. But as you mentioned, I can definitely imagine that now his season and Prema's season in general has not really gone according to plan. So, and as we know, it's so expensive competing in F3. So if there's not really any point to it, if like this cutting the season short by like just this double header is what makes him able to go race next year, either with another team in F3 or in another series, then obviously that is what is the logical thing to do. And it's also like the right timing to do it so that Alex Powell has that in-season testing so he can get accustomed with the car and it's not just like last minute decision. Is like well-timed decision is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely. And with this test, it's great that Alex actually gets to drive on this new circuit that nobody knows, because he is now coming in with a little bit of like the same footing as everyone else rather than a step back.
Yes. And talking about drivers not finishing the season, now another one that we actually haven't seen for a while is, of course, sadly, Brad Benavides for AIX. He has been out for quite a while with an injury he got back in Monaco, and now it is official that he will not be able to finish the season.
It is upsetting, but we do have Richard Escotto taking his place. We've seen him in the car a couple of times, but now he will be there for the final 2 race weekends. So interested to see how he can do in those weekends and finish his bit of a mismatched season on a high. We really wish Brad the best. I'm slightly concerned for him because I felt like he needed to have this season of F3 like end on quite a bit of a high, because we know he's been around a little bit. He's been up, he's been down, he's kind of been everywhere. And I felt like this was his time to prove that he's got it, get in those good results. And obviously, because of an injury, he kind of couldn't do that. So it'll be interesting to see where Brad goes. I kind of don't feel like he's moving up to F2. I mean, it could be proven wrong. But I would perhaps see him depart from the feeder series ladder and find a spot elsewhere in racing.
Yes, I think so too, especially because he is an odd driver, or not an odd driver, he's a good driver, but with an odd history in feeder series, because for those who don't know, he has already been in F2 and then he stepped down to another F3 level series, then came back up to F3, and he actually did perform really well end of last season in F3. So I think we really had pretty high hopes for him this season, even though he was driving for AIX, which is obviously not always the best team. But he only got that one race weekend in Australia, because obviously with the Bahrain race being cancelled in the start of the season, Monaco was literally like round 2 in F3. So it's so unfortunate that he did not get close to any racing, honestly, this year.
Yes, we wish him all of the best for everything that comes in the future, and we will let you know if he announces anything. But as of now, we are not sure what he's going to be doing. But that's kind of all of the feeder series news that we have gathered for the past little bit that has kind of just been announced to keep you updated. But now we can move on to F1 Academy in Zandvoort, which started out with one 40-minute free practice session on the Friday. We didn't have too much going on. There were a couple things. So it was like sometimes free practices can have nothing happening, but this was one that you probably should have tuned into. We also had our first look at our wild card driver, Zoe Florescu. She is Romanian, and her sponsor was Dirt is Good. Obviously, there's a little bit of controversy around that, but I don't think we'll be getting too much into that.
No, we'll just jump over that.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's the sponsor of the series, so it makes sense that they are sponsoring the wildcard. And I don't think we have to put too much into it at this moment in time. But yeah, it's great to see Zoe getting this opportunity as a wildcard driver. She did participate in the rookie test last year, and it has also just been announced that McLaren have chosen her and another driver, I don't remember her name right now, but her and another more than equal driver have been selected to do the rookie test in F1 Academy this season for them. So it will be interesting to see now that obviously we'll get to what happened in qualifying, because actually she did have the potential to have a great weekend here in Zandvoort, but unfortunately we were robbed of that, which we'll get to. So it will be interesting to see if she will perhaps be one of the full-time drivers for next season.
Definitely. And something to note going into the weekend is that we had Rafaela Ferreira getting a 5-place grid drop in Silverstone, which was carried over to this race weekend. So something to keep in mind with her. But our practice session was going all right until we got a red flag. Kind of halfway through, we had about 22 minutes left on the clock. Unfortunately, we had Ava Dobson in the wall, which wasn't the best start to her weekend.
No, definitely not. Obviously, one of our rookie drivers this season. It has been a bit up and down so far, I will say. And yeah, coming to this track, probably not what you wanted to happen, both with confidence going into qualifying, but also there will always be the concern if the car is really built properly again. You never know what will happen with that. So that was an unfortunate start for her, which then obviously meant we had the red flag. And during that red flag period, it actually also started raining a bit, which kind of wasn't the best, obviously, but well timed that it was during the red flag. And I will also mention that at this point of the practice session, Alicia Pomorski, as the only driver, had actually not set a time yet, which seems insane because obviously she went on to dominate the weekend pretty much. But so apparently she didn't need a whole lot of time in practice.
No, she said, I'm waiting. I know other stuff that you guys don't.
Yeah, as a second-year driver, obviously you have that kind of not in the back, but you have that extra knowledge of the circuit. But when we had 12 minutes to go of the session, we did get back going again. We had a couple of people actually improving their times. Nina Gademan being one of them. obviously seeing a Dutch driver topping any session here at Zandvoort was incredible. Very great sign starting off the weekend like that. But of course, it was cut short the session again with another red flag, this time by Jade Jacket, having a pretty big spin, and the session did not resume after that.
Yes, unfortunately, there was only about 5 minutes left on the clock, so it does make sense. But we actually did have her teammate Lisa Billot almost hit her, and that was kind of a stressful moment because that could have been a very big incident. But luckily, I mean, still Jade had an incident, but luckily it wasn't as big as it could have been.
No, definitely that could have been a very scary accident that luckily did not happen. But looking at the results then from practice, obviously we will not spend too much time on it because it's just practice, but we did have Nina Gateman topping the session with Rafaela Ferrara right behind her. And ALBA Larsen in P3. I will say in general, like that top three is all the experienced drivers, or like all three of them are second-year drivers. So does make sense. Also mentioning Alba, obviously she did have some extra time at the track in British F4. I think Ella Lloyd, who is like P4 in the practice session, was also taking part in that British F4 Zandvoort weekend. And Alba did get a podium in that weekend in British F4. So she really enjoys this track, clearly.
It seems to work for her, at least this year it does.
Yes. We're not talking about last year actually either. Like, don't remind me, but I think it's a good time to move on to quali, which was not the easiest conditions, let me say that.
No, we came to quali and it was a wet track and wet tires, which always stresses me out.
Yeah, because it was not like fully raining, which is good because I was like scared when we looked at the weather forecast being like, oh, this weekend could practically just be cancelled if it's raining too much in all these sessions. Luckily, it was not raining. The track was just damp and it did dry up, which always makes for an exciting qualifying, because always the big question is, when do you switch to slicks?
Exactly. But in the beginning of the session, we did have quite a few people going off the runoff areas, not being able to make the corners. The conditions were really, really tricky. And we actually saw Alicia going through the gravel on one of the turns. Luckily, she kept going and her car was fine. But that is always a stressful moment because she easily could have got beached there, and then that was it.
It was such a sketchy moment, especially because you could see, like, if she had just not committed to the turn, she could have gone to the runoff area, but she was so committed that she ended up going through the gravel. Luckily, also nothing got damaged on her car, as far as we know, because obviously that could have also have happened. It was a pretty stressful moment, and around this time in the beginning of the session, it was Alba who set the initial pace, but you could really like tell with every lap being done, the track just improved so much. So it was a lot of like time gaps between people. Like whenever you had put in a new lap, if you waited a couple of minutes, it would be so much slower than the fastest lap, because like people were just finding more and more time out there as the track dried up.
Exactly. The track was kind of peaking towards a good track condition, and people were getting used to the circuit and how the conditions were feeling out there. But one thing to note, Alicia's stats are actually insane, because tell me why she's this season never qualified out of the top two.
It's literally an insane stat, especially considering that the only time I believe she did not have pole recently was like with Chiara and Silverstone taking pole, which is like insane.
Wild card driver.
Yeah, such an impressive season by Alicia, which I feel like most of us was expecting. So it's really nice seeing it come through fruition, even though it does make the championship slightly boring, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to qualifying. Now I mentioned how the track was getting drier, so obviously the drivers and teams were starting to consider when the right time for slicks were. And it was Megan Bruce who made the first choice to try and switch to slicks. However, we did not get to the point of seeing if it was too early at the right time, because shortly after she came into the pits to change tires, and a lot of people also changed tires but decided to stay on the wet tire because they didn't think it was dry enough, we did get a red flag with Lisa Billard crashing into the barrier, unfortunately.
Yes, it was very unfortunate for her. She lost the rear, and it was inevitable that she was going to go into the barriers. As we know, Zandvoort is, with that banking, quite a tight circuit.
It really is. That obviously meant we had some time where the track was slowly drying up, and more people did feel confident and going over to the slicks when we resumed with just around 10 minutes left on the clock.
Yes, we did see Ella Lloyd, one of the only ones who decided to stay on those wet tires, and I will say, not the greatest idea.
No, it's always such a tricky decision. Obviously, if you want to play it safe with the wets when it's technically still damp, or you want to switch over to slicks, because the issue also was when Ella was committed to staying on the wets, it was not like she could go out and then change her decision. Like, you obviously need time to warm up those slick tires. So like, once she was on the wet, she was committed to that decision, and obviously as the track was drying up, it was not the right tire to be on in the end.
Yes, and shortly after that, we got another red flag, which was out for Rafaela Ferreira because she'd lost the car and spun into a wall. And now they have like 5 minutes to go. So luckily they did have enough time when they got going again to actually set some laps. But it was a bit of a stress, a little bit of a push.
Yes. Honestly, also now we talked about how Ella Lloyd's decision on staying on wets was the wrong decision. But right before the red flag, she was actually really fast, even though she was on the red tire. So like at that point, it looked great for her.
Yeah.
It was then when we restarted the session that things got messy, because first of all, being on the wets, which was the wrong tire at this point, and battling with the drivers around her, like she was fully pulling a whole train, and it looked like a race at this point in qualifying.
There were loads of people being bunched up. It was a bit of chaos.
It really was. And when I was watching this live, I was literally just screaming at the screen, like, get out of the way. Cause like I could see on the timings that we had both Nina and Alba absolutely flying on the slick tires. And they did both put in great laps, but obviously not as good as the lap that Alicia Pomorski in the end was able to put in on her final lap.
Alicia was flying. Like I feel like she knows how to deliver when it's needed.
She obviously does. That is also why she just completely is dominating this championship this season. Crucially, Alicia was able to perfectly judge when to go out, when to do her push lap, how to also obviously in collaboration with the team, when the right timing was for her. Because obviously if you look at her nearest rivals being ALBA LARSEN ending up in P2, like when she set her lap, that was so quick compared to everyone else around her. But her issue was that lap came in one lap too early, unfortunately for her, because her final lap, she was distracted a lot by traffic around her, because as we already mentioned, there was a lot going on with cars in front of her. So her final lap, she did not improve, where Alicia's best lap, which ended up being good enough for pole position by quite a margin, was set on the very final lap, where she managed to find a gap and stay clear of all the chaos ahead of her, or behind her, I guess.
Can we talk about Natalia Granada in P3? I feel like Natalia has been quietly having a good season, and she's peaking at the correct time. Like, I was so insane to see her in P3, and Emma Falbermeyer in P4, Nina Gademan in P5, Rachel Robinson in P6, Megan Bruce in P7, and Payton in P8. That is the final order, but on track it finished a little bit different. Because we had our wildcard driver who put in an absolutely insane lap, but was disqualified from qualifying.
Literally so unfortunate because Zoe qualified before she was disqualified in P7, which meant that obviously she would have started in P2 in the reverse grid race. And like that we were robbed of seeing what would have happened if she actually qualified P7. Also, obviously, for the feature race, that is also a good position to be in. But instead, she had to start from the back for both races. And apparently it was because the wrong oil was in her engine. I'm sorry, high tech. How did this happen? And what are we doing?
Why was it Zoe as well? Like, this is her one shot. At least it seems like it didn't happen anything. Like, it's okay, but still.
Yeah, it is so unfortunate. Also, another driver that obviously it was unfortunate for, kind of, is Megan Bruce was the driver that was supposed to start from pole position in the reverse grid race. But obviously she was bumped up, so she got P2. And very luckily for Payton Wescott, being qualifying originally in P9, was bumped up to P8 and starting from pole. And I guess we can move on to the reverse grid race now.
And it was a dry start, which was always good because, as we mentioned, going into this weekend didn't look great. But we actually had a dry start and a great start for Payton. Like, she went out there, she drove her race.
Yes, it was actually really incredible to see. I will say Payton in general probably has been I don't know if she has been the most impressive rookie this season, but she has definitely been performing really well across the season so far. She also is the highest ranked rookie right now in the championship. Obviously, it is very much dominated by the returning drivers so far, but she is up there, and it was very nice seeing her being able to pretty much just control the race from pole position. She was never really in doubt of that win, which we will get onto, that she did get, even though she was challenged from behind. And honestly, the reverse grid race was quite a bit of chaos, to be honest.
It was. Going back to the beginning, we had Nina overtaking Rachel and getting into P3 and starting to battle with Megan for P2. And then if you look a little further back on the grid, very unfortunate for our pole starter the next day, Alicia Palmowski, actually stalling on the grid twice, falling right to the back. And I think she actually burnt out her clutch. And that definitely showed during the race because she really couldn't make up places. And we know Alicia, in the reverse grid races, she can still make up those places when she's starting on pole the next day, when she's qualified in P8 for them. So it was very an un-Alicia race, but we know she had that problem in the beginning, and it just, you know what, it wasn't her race. She would come back for redemption the next day.
Yes, it was very unfortunate to see for Alicia, because when you see her obviously having the issue on the start, she was able to get going in the end, so it's not like she had to be pulled off the grid or anything and out of the race. So you did sit with that expectation that, oh, now she'll actually just have an overtake masterclass, but sadly we did not get that. She also did have a radio message at one point saying there was definitely something wrong with the car. At least she was able to finish the race, so she could get whatever out of that learning driving in race trim. But now we talk about drama and stuff happening. We did have our first safety car of the race. Unfortunately, now we talk so well about Natalia Granada. She did have a moment that sent her up into the barrier in the banking of turn 3.
Very unfortunate for her, bringing out the safety car on lap 2. It did last not too long. We got green again on lap 4, and Payton, just I can't say anything about her safety car restarts because they were perfect. We did, unfortunately, get the driver in P2, Megan Bruce, just got swallowed by the pack.
Yeah.
She just got overtaken. And then, we kind of see this when you lose that momentum and everyone else seems to have something over you. She just kept falling down. And I think she was down to P7, like right afterwards, because everyone just kept overtaking her.
Yeah, it really looked like Megan was experiencing some sort of issue, maybe, because it looked very odd how she just completely got swallowed up. But as you say, like once one person is on you, you're very likely to drop like a stone through the field. And unfortunately, that is what happened to Megan. Now going the other direction, we did see Alba being absolutely on the move. Honestly, she was like the entertainment of this race for me because it is obviously not as hard to overtake in Zandvoort in F1 Academy as we see it is in F1. It's like, maybe that's the reason why we don't go back to Zandvoort. I'm so sorry, but the F1 races, especially the sprint, was that wasn't it. But F1 Academy came with the entertainment, and I will say a lot of that was down to Alba putting in some incredible overtakes, making her way slowly up until, of course, we did have another stoppage with Jade Jacket crashing out. And like, this is just not her weekend, clearly.
No, she seems to always have like an issue with Lisa Billard. They need to not be near each other because she had a collision with her teammate, Lisa Billard, on lap 9. And this lasted for a little bit as well, but we were green again on lap 12.
Yes, and this is the point where we had the order of obviously Payton Wescott is P1. Like, she's just chilling out there. She's nailing the safety car restarts. Everything is fine for her. And then we did have Nina in P2, obviously, which she already made up to P2 at the very start of the race. But then we had Alba in P3, and now I was very scared when it came up that she was like practically noted. I don't know if it ever really got to be under investigation that she may have like overlapped with Nina or something, or like passed her when she wasn't supposed to. Luckily, nothing came of that because I was like sitting there. Do I get my second ALBA podium which is then like technically the first, because obviously only for her to be not disqualified, but like get a time penalty and getting dropped off the podium. But luckily that did not happen. We did see Alba overtaking Nina for P2, and I was very happy in that moment, even though I know Nina, it is her home race, but she still had a great race, still got on the podium. Everyone can be happy.
Exactly. But the drama didn't really end there because we saw Emma and Rachel really battling. They were fighting and they had a little bit of contact. Luckily, no damage, but they were racing hard. Like, there was one point where Emma hit Rachel and then Rachel went into the gravel, which did cause Emma to get a 5-second time penalty, which was not the best for her race because it did end up dropping her down a little bit. But they were really battling.
Honestly, I was so scared at this point because I feel like after that safety car restart, people were going 3 abreast everywhere. I was like, this cannot end well. Somehow, everyone managed to escape. Everyone survived that because that was like pure chaos for a hot minute.
Like the mid pack, we're talking about like the lower bits of the top 10. They were just fighting. And like, I didn't even know who was going to get those positions because everyone was so close. And as you said, they were literally like 3 abreast and then 2 abreast. And then like everyone was just there. And I was like, how are we going to get clean out of this? But miraculously, we did.
Yes, and nothing much else crazy really happened in the race, but obviously I have to mention Esme Custerman also is kind of a star of this reverse grid race because this is the first time she actually scored points, and she was pretty close to getting that first podium. Obviously she did not, but she did end up in P4 here at her home race. So that was honestly such an incredible race by her.
Yes, and looking at the podium, we obviously kind of mentioned it, but we had Payton keeping that P1 throughout the race, Alba fighting her way to P2, and Nina Gateman in P3. We had Ella Lloyd in P5 and Rachel Robinson in P6. Megan Bruce in P7 and Ava actually getting the last point in P8. But those were our point scorers for the reverse grid race. I will say they were the best results for Payton and ALBA with their respective P1 and P2. And looking at the drivers who scored, it was a very bad day for Campos.
Yes, we are very much not used to seeing this. Obviously, Campos being like the dominant team across pretty much all feeder series this year, at least the higher levels of like F2, F3, F1 Academy. So an odd one to see them not really being anywhere with any of the drivers. Obviously, it doesn't help that Megan Bruce started really high up, but like kind of fell down pretty quickly through the race, and then Rafael Ferreira having that grid drop, which put her even further back, also crushing qualifying. So really not great for her, and Alicia having the issue at start. So it was interesting to see that now that we are in Zandvoort in MP's home track, they were really shining with that P2, P3, and P4.
Wow, go MP.
Yes, finally they had a good race weekend. I feel like obviously in the standings, Nina and Alba, because she really made a leap up in the standings this weekend with being the highest scoring driver across the weekend. They are up there, but also we have with Esme Kostman, obviously she did have a good race here in the reverse grid. But like in general, it has been a very up and down season so far for MP. So it was really nice seeing them actually really being up there, and also obviously Prema winning the race with Payton has to be mentioned.
Definitely. Like, Prema, slight dominance, but
Yeah, well, we'll take it. Obviously, Prema is not as bad in Fun Academy as they are in the other series, but it is still kind of surprising seeing that now Prema won her race. That was like so much the norm in every other season in F1 Academy, like literally winning the team's championship every year. So like it is interesting to see how it has definitely changed this season so far.
exactly. And I think that's all that we had to mention from race 1. But moving on to race 2, which I will say was the quieter race of the two, if I can say it like that.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to talk too much about it actually, because literally my notes are just filled of hope that, oh wow, now Alba is so close to Alicia. Now she's still so close to Alicia. So, like, summing up the race, obviously we did have Alicia Pomorski starting from P1, Alba Larsen starting P2, and Natalia Granada P3. And when we started the race, we did have a clean start. It did look slightly like Alba had the better initial start, but then she caught some wheel spin. So in the end, it wasn't too great. Actually, it looked like she almost could have lost P2, but she managed to keep her position. And further behind her, we had Nina again, just flying up from P5. She was like, I'm taking that podium again today.
Nina was like, the home race spirit is fueling me to get here. But honestly, we had such a clean race. We had no interruptions throughout the entire race. We had Natalia and Emma battling for P4 pretty much the whole race. They had a little bit of light contact, but Natalia did end up keeping Emma behind for every single lap.
Honestly, I feel like throughout the entire race, the people who control like what we're seeing, they were swapping between seeing the fight between Alicia and Alba, and when we were not seeing them, we were seeing the fight between the other drivers, like 4P4. That was what happened. And honestly, because also I will say it's great seeing a clean race in F1 Academy, because some people do give the series a lot of shit for them not being great drivers. Well, now you got a clean race.
Yeah.
So obviously they are all capable drivers able to do that. And I will say, even though Alicia did lead the entire race, I was happy to see Alba really putting on the pressure, and like obviously had Alicia made any kind of mistake, Alba would have been there, and I also think that was her biggest chance. Obviously she was able to overtake a couple of drivers the day before, but obviously when you're up against Alicia, the championship leader, it's not going to be as easy. So she was there, and obviously Alicia just was able to keep calm and just not make any mistakes, not opening the door for ALBA. And also, I will give credit to ALBA for not making any silly moves, which we could have seen in the past from her, and which is also the reason why we have not had more podiums from her. So really nice to seeing her having matured a bit and having developed her racecraft. So she was able to stay with Alicia for most of the race. They actually, both of them did pull away from Nina in P3. But in the end, it was unfortunately not enough, especially not here in Zandvoort, where it is actually pretty difficult to overtake.
Exactly. We did land up getting quite a bit of a big train behind Megan Bruce, and kind of no one could overtake. Nina ended up dropping down, as you mentioned, from ALBA and Alicia. And then towards the end of the race, we kind of got Alicia pulling out a bit of a gap. I don't know how she manages the tires, the car. She reads the race so well that she knows at the end she'll be able to pull out a gap, because she actually ended up pulling out a 2.8 second gap. And a big gap down to Nina as well, with 8.7 seconds. So those top two were really flying. There were some battles in the mid-pack. There really wasn't that much to report on. Obviously, it was a very clean race, but we landed up getting Alicia's 4th win. And it's possible for her to win the title in Austin.
Yeah, it is impressive that we already have her being able to seal the championship next race weekend. Of course, there are also a lot of points up for grabs in Austin, because we do have the opening race added to that race weekend, so we will have 3 races there. So it will be interesting to see if any of the other drivers have anything to say on that, because if it continues as it is, I think it's obviously pretty likely that Alicia will win. I feel like her car needs to break down like Maya's did last year or something, and one of the other drivers in the top 4 needs to have like incredible races.
Don't
in
put
Austin
that out
and Las
into
Vegas.
the universe.
No, oh my God, imagine that happens. I will take full responsibility if Alicia experiences any car issue in
I'll
Austin. I'm
send
so
you
sorry.
my therapy bills.
Yes, I'm sorry in advance. Hopefully that does not happen.
But yes, obviously we have a little bit of a wait until the next race weekend, which is unfortunate. But going back to Zandvoort, and obviously we mentioned our podium, but this weekend, if you didn't notice, we got 2 P2s for ALBA and 2 P3s for Nina. So they both were kind of stuck to that podium. You really could not get them off, which is really, really good to be consistent, because as you mentioned, ALBA jumps from 8th to 4th in the standings. Like, one weekend can change a lot.
It was a super impressive weekend for ALBA. Obviously, it does help that she did have that British F4 weekend as kind of a warm-up session, warm-up weekend to driving in F1 here, in F1 Academy here.
Whoa!
Imagine stepping up into the Ferrari in F1. Not quite yet, but it was very nice seeing. Obviously, she has had a podium in the past, which was taken away. So, technically, her first official 2 podiums being in the same weekend. Such impressive performance from her, both showing that she was able to keep her P2 starting from there and also fight her way through the field from P7 in the reverse grid race. It is kind of what we've been waiting for from ALBA, because I feel like there's been higher expectations, especially from me, obviously, than what we've seen so far. And I do also think it will be interesting to see what she does next year, because I think I have mentioned it in the podcast before. Actually, I don't know, but now I will mention it if I have not previously. But we have talked about how there is this added rule to F1 Academy going into next year, that F1 Academy can make exceptions if they want to keep a driver for a 3rd season, if they have a qualified reason to why it would benefit the driver to stay in the series. And I will say, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that if they choose to use that rule, I could see ALBA staying for a 3rd season in F1 Academy, with the reasoning, obviously, if going into Austin and Las Vegas, if she continues improving in the final bit of the season. And also the fact that right now she's the same age as the rookies of this season. So obviously she is in her second season, but it's also like she started in the series as like the youngest driver. So like it could make sense development wise if they decide to stay around for a third season. But like obviously nothing is confirmed on that. It's just the vibe I'm getting, especially with Alba being like, this is only the beginning. I'm like, girl, this is like, we only have 2 weekends left in F1 Academy. Like, what are we doing here?
Maybe she's hinting at it. I mean, you've had some crazy predictions about her that have been right. Like her driving for Ferrari this year. So, something to keep an eye out on.
Yes, for sure. Honestly, imagine if this happens, we could make a whole nother reel being like, multiple months ago I said this, because for those who are not regular listeners of the podcast or the people who did not watch the podcast last year, I did tell you all that she would be joining Ferrari before it was announced. So who knows, maybe I'm right or maybe I'm completely wrong. But I do feel like her only being 17 and like just finding her footing in F1 Academy, I don't really see her like say join GP3. Like I don't feel like she's ready for that jump yet. Obviously she could just do a full season in another F4 series, but I do see maybe a third F1 Academy season being an option. And I was like, why include the rule if we're not going to use it for anyone?
Exactly. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But I guess that was kind of it for what happened in Zandvoort for F1 Academy.
Yes, it was a very exciting weekend with some mixed races. You know, we've got the first race was very chaotic, and the second race where we had a very clean race, but still just as exciting to watch these incredible talents drive around the circuit for the last time. Obviously, F1 Academy has always gone to Zandvoort, and now it's gone. So I'm actually really going to miss it in that sense. Like, feels a part of the championship. So it's going to be very interesting next year when we don't have that. But as we mentioned, we've got a little bit of time to wait for our next F1 Academy race. But don't worry, we've got a lot coming up between then. We've got some title to be decided in F3, and we've got some F2 races coming up. So don't worry about that. But the next episode that you can look forward to is going to be a little bit of a recap next week on our experiences at Formula E in London, because we were there volunteering. But you'll have to wait till next week to hear all about that.
Yes, we're very much looking forward to once again sharing our experience volunteering at the London E-Prix. Now it will be different to last year. You can be like, well, I can just watch last year's episode about your experience. But no, because we did volunteer in a different role this season. So quite a different experience, I will say. Obviously, London E-Prix was still amazing, but definitely stay tuned for that because we have even more insights and details we want to share with you from this year's London E-Prix.
Exactly. But thank you so much for listening and or watching this episode. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe if you're not. And if you're on Spotify, please follow us if you're not. But we really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.